So I feel like I'm being left behind. Like this is not necessarily a new feeling, but I haven't really felt it in a while. And it all started with like yesterday evening when I was going to bed. I was starting to have some thoughts that I haven't had like in many weeks. And I started to get worried because I was like, is this the end of this really good moment I'm living? Is this, am I going back to being unstable and, unbalanced? And I mean, today I woke up and I'm fine. So, things seem to be continue in the right direction, in the right path. It's just like some of these feelings that they kind of like they linger, and doesn't matter where I look around me, like it feels like everything is kind of like indicating that I've been left behind, that I'm kind of like stuck in the past without anything in sight, any possible like lever that would just push me forward or pull me. But yeah, so I want to explore these feelings that I've been having, and why is that they're happening, right now. I think that I think the now is not necessarily relevant because, as I mentioned before, I've been having these feelings for many years, from like 18 to 21. Like that was a constant feeling that I had, and it just made me very anxious and very frustrated, and it was not really good for me on the long run because it made me start having very self-destructive actions. I was not, I was not trying to be self-destructive, but I decided to just, I'm gonna get something at any cost, and that was bad for my health, my mental health, my physical health, and I moved past that. I think when 21 things started to happen for me, and as a consequence, I started feeling less like that. But still, I felt like I had a lot of like catching up to do to be at the same level as my age. And as I said many times before, like there isn't a specific path that you can follow. There are guidelines, or there are like there is kind of like a mode of what you do, but that doesn't apply for everybody. And yesterday I went I went hang out with my I went out with my friend. We had lunch and then went back to her home, and then we went to some of her friends' place where we were playing. And like they shared some of when they just like tidbits of their life, and it was kind of like reassuring because basically it was a couple. So like the girl, the woman, she's older than me, and she's like almost 30. She came to this city she was going to study law, and then at the time, like the federal university we had here was the best like law course degree that we had in the country. So she came here and then she abandoned it, and right now, and she went to work with other stuff like regarding marketing, and then right now she's like graduating online from, just so she has a degree, but she's very much like, yeah, this is just so I can have a degree. She's not really uh invested, let's say. But it was kind of like reassuring because she dropped out of college and then she found her own path without having a degree, which is the kind of like the thing that I think that has been, but like she did find a career for herself. It was very niche, she said, and that kind of like helped her not really need a degree, but it is a possibility. And her husband, he also, I don't know what he does, but he doesn't have a college degree. He ended up working on something that doesn't require it. So it was kind of like heartwarming in a way for me to just see that, like, yes, that is a path. But like any path I want to take, or that I dare take, like it is going to require something, and I'm not sure I'm willing to pay like those prices. That I think that maybe like starting a new degree might be the way for me. I might find myself in the process. I might like just figure out like what I want to do professionally. And that's an interesting thing because for a long time, like I equated my life and my well-being and my my status as a person with work, and my academic life. Like those, they were the defining traits of me. I think that people say that, like, you ask people who they are, and then they're like their profession, because work is so ingrained in our culture. And like what are the really important things. Some people, they're going to work with something they're passionate about, so it makes sense that they would identify with like that. But I think most people, like, they're just their job is their job. It's just something to pay the bills, and that they kind of like, and they exist as that in their lives, and they And that's not so like who they are. My friend I think is a good example. I think she should ask her who she is. She will talk about like her interests first, which as I said, like those are the things that matter to us. Like it makes more sense for us to start with them. And if you ask me who I am, I definitely at this point in time, I wouldn't really kind of like say a profession because I'm kind of like still figuring things out. And like most of what I do is not really kind of like work oriented. The things I'm selling, they are they're like complementing my income. Like they have more relevance in that regards than any profession that I could have. So yeah, who am I? I'm back. But what I was saying is that for me, it doesn't make sense for me to just talk about work as being like a fundamental part of who I am, because it hasn't been the case in a while. And regarding like whatever I do professionally in the future, it is something still like I'm still constructing it. I'm still building that path, and there are many possibilities, and they all every single one of them seems as likely as the next. So I kind of have it feels like it can feel like both like something exciting, as in like I have so many possibilities, or something overwhelming, like I have so many possibilities, like which one am I gonna pick? Because particularly because like as I said, each one of them, they seem as probable as the next. Like there's no affinity with anyone over the other regarding any of them. So like what exactly is going to guide me, is going to lead to my choice. And it's just I don't know. That's the thing, I don't know. And I feel like this uncertainty might contribute to my feeling that I've been left behind, because it feels like everybody else has their job situation figured out. Of course I know a lot of people, they leave from like an activity to another activity. They don't have like a fixed thing that they do, and I'm not opposed to that. But I think that would bring a certain level of stability to my life if I had something that I can do like that, like something solid, something certain. I mean, of course there's no such thing as certainty, because like even if you have a job, like you can lose it at any point in time. So there is no guarantee that like it's going to be like on the long run that is going to be something that's going to be the thing. Because you might also like find a thing and you think that is the thing, and then you realize that it is not, because that's pretty much what has happened with me and my attempts at academia. It's just I start something and I'm like, this is the way, and then at some point I realize that it's not the way, and I try something else, and I'm putting like all my hopes in dreams into like that being the thing, and then it doesn't really work out. I will say that the third time that I started like a new major, I did have like my hesitations and my my not necessarily doubts, but I started like very detached, in the sense of like I'm not putting all my hopes in this, although I still develop like some expectations. But the next one that I'm working towards, like I'm going to I'm not putting I'm not creating expectations for that. I'm gonna try something new, and if it works, it works, and if it doesn't, I will try the next thing. And I don't mind live my life like this until I figure it out, like what I want to do in the long run. But like it is the type of thing that makes me feel like, as I said, that I'm like behind, because it feels like everybody has already figured out what they're gonna do, or even if like they don't know, what they realize that what they don't want to do, what they do is not what they want to do. They still kind of like build something out of that, and kind of pretty much that. So there are some other things that made me feel kind of like left behind. I saw a post the other day, another post, it was actually not a post, it was a message of someone I went to high school with who, she's married and she's pregnant, and she's like my age, and I had no desire of getting pregnant or marrying, so like that's not part of like my vision for my future. But these are kind of like milestones that people have. So just looking at that, I'm like, yeah, this is already meeting another milestone, and it feels like I am still here, still figuring out. And it is kind of like a mixed bag, because on one hand I'm feeling disconnected and not inappropriate, but inadequate, that's the word, inadequate. But on the other, I've kind of like come to embrace where I am, and I accept that this is like the point where I am at, you know, because every person has their own journey, and you know, this is my journey, and I'm at this point in time. But I think that I'm starting to crave some more independence, and I don't know how to make that work, basically, because you know, like there are certain reasons for why certain things are kind of like limited to me that have to do with my mental health. Of course, that like now that I seem to be in a good place mentally, like I might in the future start, you know, things start opening up for me. But yeah, so at the same time, I do feel a certain openness in the way I do things. I don't feel constrained necessarily. But you know, when I think about like, you know, let's say I just want to do something random right now, like there's a bunch of like steps that I have to go through to, you know, make sure that, you know, I'm safe and sound, you know, and that whatever I do doesn't pose, you know, a threat to my well-being. And you know, like as I said, it's for my own good, so I'm not opposing it. But you know, sometimes I still crave the spontaneity of, you know, just going out and doing something. It's like there's no plan, you know, just going out and, you know, fucking around a little bit. But as I said, I understand why there's the things set in place, why they're here. So I'm not complaining. But also, like, it's interesting because my head has started to contemplate certain things that I had never really contemplated before. And truth be told, like, I don't think that these possibilities are going to be set in motion, because it's not like the most financially responsible thing for me to do. You know, I think living where I am at right now, this is the best, you know, thing for me. You know, that's pretty much what allows me to be able to, you know, save us some money for, you know, the future, have my own place. But you know, I'm starting to crave maybe like being alone. As I said before, as I am right now, like that is not a viable thing. It's not really a good thing for me, because you know, something might happen. I might do something, you know, if I cycle. So you know, like it's not really happening. But you know, I'm thinking, you know, I'm thinking. Oi, hold up.